Good evening. My name is Jim Cludier. We're here tonight for the September meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. It's September the 10th. We're at the Feeney Conference Room at the Cumberland County Courthouse. As we always do, we can start our meeting by inviting everyone interested to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
could I have the signs that are on display tonight, could I have those removed so I am not sitting here all night looking at these signs?
Well, how about this? Perhaps you can show us your signs. I assume you may speak tonight during the public comment period, and please feel free to take a moment to show the signs so that the television audience will see them, and then maybe we can put them away for the night and go from there. So let's begin with the approval of the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes from our July meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We have information reports tonight. First, an update on the commissioner's records on the plans stored at the Registry of Deeds. Mr. Gailey, you dealing with that?
Yes. I just want to give a brief overview of this. Commissioner Coward has asked to have me speak on this and the status of these documents. They are referred to as commissioner documents or commissioner plans. What they are is a historical documentation of largely old county road maps, old state highway maps. Nothing new, per se. They stopped creating files in these file drawers years ago, but they are used by local surveyors and attorneys for historical matters as it relates to right-of-way acquisition or determining any easements or deed transfers in the right-of-way area through the years. These documents in Cumberland County are stored, even though they're called commissioners' plans or documents, they're stored down at the Registry of Deeds. There are 2 file drawers down there. The file drawers are chock full of files. There's roughly just under 10,000 files down there. And a number of years ago, the Register of Deeds, Nancy Lane, had them scanned for a contract price just over $27,000 because she was fearful that if there was some sort of flood or the sprinkler system went off and these documents got damaged, they were not backed up in any way, shape, or form. And so these documents have been scanned and lie on the same software program as the Registry of Deeds documents. However, they are not part of the Registry of Deeds documents, and they are only there stored and not displayed electronically. And so the question I believe Commissioner Cow received was, how can we make these documents available online and save me a trip from going into the registry? And so what we have found that there is a significant amount of work that is needed, even though these documents are scanned, they are not indexed. The scans are indexed by towns only, and for instance, a Portland or a Wyndham could have 40, 50 plus files within the file under the town. And so they need to be indexed further, so they are not ready for prime time at this point. Additionally, they sit on a software platform that is the same as the Registry of Deeds, but we would think that we would not want to have them incorporated into the Registry of Deeds on the sheer fact that we do receive revenue for these. And if you may remember, the Registry of Deeds, through state legislation change a number of years ago, they now provide any individual or, in a sense, IP address 500 free prints before the charging begins. And so if we lump them under the Registry of Deeds for searching and for viewing and printing, we would make these documents fall under the Registry of Deeds state statute, and we would lose out revenue. So that is the report out thus far. I think this can be a conversation that we have maybe in a workshop to come, but for the immediate satisfaction, I hope this information sheet satisfies and begins a further dialogue around these documents if there is the wishes of the commissioners to do so. So I can answer any questions, or we can let it stand as is. Thank you.
Mr. Good?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So we are gonna make it a part of a workshop issue?
We can, if the commissioners would like to talk further on this.
Is that, everybody think that's a good idea or necessary?
I'd be interested, I mean, I've had some calls, several calls from a surveyor who's interested in getting access to these. I recognize the cost factor, and, I mean, they are available. If you could figure out what they are, you can come down here and take a look at them. But I think it's, in the 21st century, online access is really what people expect. Part of the reason we archive this stuff is so that it's available. I mean, these are things that are not, I don't think they're available anyplace else. And for surveyors in Maine, which is already a very poorly surveyed, big piece of real estate, it's useful to have this information available. So I'd be interested in seeing ways that we can cost effectively make these things easily available to people who want to come down and take a look at them. It may not be often, but it'll certainly be valuable to the, both to the surveyors and to their clients who are our landowners and taxpayers. So anyway, so I'd love to have a workshop on it where we can kick around some ideas and see what we can come up with.
There are 2 volumes, is that what you said, or
2 file cabinets.
2 file cabinets, okay. All right.
Not just
I
a
was gonna
plan
say,
book, not
Bring
just a
them
plan
up
book.
and let's have a look.
Go down and look
Or we
at
can
it.
have a view.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, we'll put that on our ever-lengthening list of things to do, and go from there. Cost Plus Purchasing Program, Trinity Services Group, the sheriff is here, the major is here. Who wants to talk about this?
I'm going to defer to Major Tim Courts, but I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork. Given the fact that we've run into, in the last couple of years, some increases in costs of food, and we've been trying to control those costs and in trying to control the cost of the jail, one of the things that Major Courts has done is looked at the potential of having a company do all the ordering of the food. And he will explain it more eloquently than I. However, one of the things that we looked at was this would be a pilot project, that we wouldn't get locked into some sort of a contract. We think we can save some money. The major thinks we can save some money, so I'm going to turn it over to him to explain it, but this is just another way of trying to make sure that we make the limited money that we have to run the jail go as far as we can. So I'm going to turn it over to Major Tim Courts.
Hello.
Evening.
Good evening. So I have an information sheet just to pass out, just to give you an idea of the savings.
Okay.
So basically, our food cost right now per meal for offenders is $145, which is kind of high across the country. The norm is about $125. With the cost plus service, basically, it's like they're the broker that goes to the other vendors. They'll get the bottom line prices, and we won't be dealing with multiple vendors. They did a study analysis based on our menus, and the savings that's at the bottom, I believe it's $50,000 for food. $7,600 for cleaning chemicals, and $3,400 for paper products. So, like the sheriff said, it would be a one-year trial basis to see if we can have some savings there. This is the only company that's involved in the custodial facilities that do offer this service. They do offer other things, but right now we're just looking to see if we can save some money and conserve on our expenditures.
I think the first thing people wonder about is basically the menu item's gonna stay about the same,
Yeah,
and
they
the
look at,
quantities will be about the same, and
Yes.
that kind of thing, so it's,
one thing that we can't control is the therapeutic and the religious diets. That kind of drives the price up, and we're kind of obligated to abide by that because we're accredited. So that's one thing, but I think it's fair to say that we will save a significant amount of money. I can't guarantee it's gonna be 70,000, but I would say at least 50,000 if things go the way they're supposed to.
other questions,
Yeah.
comments? Yeah.
Major, do you yourself personally, or do you have any colleagues from other facilities have had experiences with?
So we went down to Hillsborough, down in New Hampshire, Hillsborough County Jail. They were totally satisfied with the service.
Okay.
I believe they're, Oxford County in Maine is looking at them also. They do have several other clients down in Massachusetts, Barnstable, I believe, Plymouth. So they're kind of well-known in the correctional field, and I just think it's an opportunity. It's for a year.
Certainly.
I don't think there's any downside to giving it an opportunity.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No.
Sounds good
Major,
to
thank
me.
you very much. Is there any action required of us to implement this, or is that just within the administration's discretion?
Yeah, this was for informational purposes. If it seems as though everything's copacetic with the commissioners, I would ask that the major and the sheriff bring forward a one-year contract, if that's to be created, and the commissioners will approve that at a later meeting, and we'll kick this program off.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our informational reports. Next, comments from the public. We do limit it to 3 minutes, but if you need an extension, please just let us know.
Thank you, Commissioner Cloutier. I would like to ask the chair for permission to exceed 3 minutes.
Why don't you go ahead, and when we get to 3 minutes, we'll consider it then.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sue Hawes. I've been a resident of Cumberland County since 1994. My husband of 26 years, Deputy Philip Francis Daniel Hawes, worked as a sheriff's deputy and master corrections officer at the Cumberland County Jail. After more than 10 years of exemplary service between 2006 and 2016 at a job he excelled at and loved, Deputy Hawes was medically retired in September of 2018. First, I want to take a moment and remember 9-year-old Raylan Bell, whose life was tragically cut short, and the other victims of July 21st car crash in Gorham, Maine, when Cumberland County Jail Corrections Officer Kenneth Morang fell asleep at the wheel after a 16-hour shift at Cumberland County Jail. Officer Morang was in my husband's 2006 Basic Corrections graduating class at the Maine Criminal Justice Academy. Raylan Bell was traveling home from the movies with her family on a Sunday afternoon. My heart is broken over this tragic loss of Raylan's life, knowing that I and others spent a year of my life coming and speaking at your monthly meetings between March 2017 and February 2018, imploring you, the commissioners, to direct attention to what was happening at the jail. On October 22nd, 2015, Sheriff Joyce had declared a severe downsizing of staffing level via memo. In his words, the policy was made under the guise of management's rights. Sheriff Joyce downsized the 4 largest pods at Cumberland County Jail from 2 officer posts to 1 officer posts. 1 officer to meet the needs of 86 humans during each 8-hour shift, regardless of the time of day of the week, and that 1 officer was left to rely on emergency responses from coworkers working overtime. Through a Freedom of Access Act request, I learned that there had been no staffing analysis conducted by the sheriff or the jail administrator before the October 2015 staffing level policy change. And I reference in there the staffing workbook, which I was pleased to see during the jail safety workshop on top of Sheriff Joyce's pile of papers. I hope he got at least as far as page 3, where it says how funding and commissioners can be held liable for working conditions at the jail. On October 22nd, 2015, Sheriff Joyce simply announced, effective Monday, October 26, 2015, we will no longer be double staffing officers in B1, B3, C1, or C3 when the count exceeds 64 inmates. Thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Ms. Hawes, we're going to need to extend your time for speaking. Can I have a motion to extend her time by 3 minutes? Well, I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Any opposition? You have 3 more minutes.
Thank you. The sheriff's selection of 1 corrections officer to manage 86 inmates had been made at random, with no forethought or discussions of the foreseeable impacts of this policy change. The union filed an appeal, but appears to have lost the ability to fight the staffing level policy change due to filing too late after the sheriff's action. I also learned that the sheriff's previously undisclosed change to staffing level policy was announced right after a new contract had been signed. Through another FOIA, I have evidence that the jail's recent reaccreditation was based on a staffing level plan unchanged since 2014. As far back as then, and as far as I can see today, 99 corrections officer are what you're budgeting.
You have a little more than 1 more minute left.
I'm going to finish, Commissioner Cloutier. As you can see, it is not long. I am almost done.
Okay?
County employees and members of the public, including myself, came to your commissioners' meetings month after month, submitting evidence of the various impacts of the staffing policy change and the resulting loss of employees, out of control and ever-increasing reliance on overtime. The employees are absorbing 3,000 to 5,000 hours a month of overtime just to maintain apparently emergency level staffing. I finally gave up on eliciting an action plan from the commissioners and stopped coming to your meetings. After I made my last public comments on February 12th, 2018, you continued to do nothing about the jail staffing crisis, and that unrelenting crisis has now resulted in the death of Raylan Bell. 3 out of 5 of our county commissioners are attorneys, and at least 1 specializes in workers' compensation and personal injury law. After your willful refusal to address the jail staffing crisis and your unrelenting and ongoing reliance of forcing corrections officers to work overtime, you knew as well as I that it was just a matter of time before tragedy would strike. Only 18 months after I finally threw in the towel, I'm back, and I hold you, our county commissioners, and Sheriff Joyce personally responsible for the death of Raylan Bell. You, our elected commissioners, have been keeping these seats warm for years, collecting your salaries, health insurance, and all the other benefits of public service, while you constructively and deliberately ignored the risks and liabilities of your mismanagement of the jail and outright exploitation of county jail employees through your abuse of overtime. You put and continue to put our county employees, inmates, vendors, and the public at risk by allowing these problems to fester unabated. You have month after month refused to address problems for which you are responsible by law. Even my own commissioner was singing the same song a year after all the evidence I put forth. A year later, he continued to insist, hey, the inmates only come out 43 at a time now. And the jail keeps getting reaccredited, and hey, it's cheaper to rely on overtime than hiring needed staff. To me, this pervasive attitude of the commissioners and the sheriff about the job of a corrections officer reflects calculated indifference towards a stressful and difficult job and jail operations as a whole. A jail for which you, the Cumberland County Commissioners, are 100% responsible. Hey, you signed the contract. You dictate the working conditions. Not only did you sit there and ignore me, cut me off and others, and bury the information I presented, you also, I believe, to a criminally negligible extent, repeatedly and willfully ignored your employees' pleas for attention and help. Your employees, on at least 3 occasions at your monthly meetings, testified during public comments about coworkers collapsing while on duty and being taken to the hospital. Your jail administrator stood in front of you and repeated 4 times that he would never say the jail was unsafe. Major John Costello literally told you that instead of admitting the jail was unsafe, he'd just retire. The commissioners held one workshop to discuss jail safety. With no facilitator or expert to inform the commissioners or offer objective opinions, the evidence shows you did nothing about the safety issues created by the staffing level policy change. In fact, during testimony at the July 2017 workshop, one of the participants, I believe it was Vinyl Thompson, noted that July and August are the worst months for mandatory overtime and holdovers. The only suggestion from the commissioners resulting from the workshop was to force more employees to do more overtime. The commissioners took no action to address even issues the sheriff himself admitted. For example, within his written testimony submitted for the jail safety workshop, Sheriff Joyce states, I do believe the amount of overtime that employees in the jail are working is unsafe. What actions did you take in response to that knowledge? I always thought it was strange, even though after my testimony each month, I routinely asked you if you had any questions for me. You never did, and now I understand why. You did not want to know why I was so personally invested in getting your attention focused. Now that our relevant legal cases are closed, I'm free to tell you, and I do so with my husband's permission and support. As I said, my husband is Deputy Philip Hawes. Deputy Hawes worked as a Master Corrections Officer and later Sheriff's Deputy at Cumberland County Jail between 2006 and 2016. Deputy Hawes had suffered from nocturnal epilepsy since he was 15, suffering 0 to 3 seizures a year. But all of a sudden, he suffered 3 seizures in April of 2016. Our family was unaware of what might be causing the issue. His job was stressful, but he had excelled at it for 10 years. What we are unaware of is how toxic the job had become due to chronic mismanagement, including understaffing and reliance on overtime, and now the October 2015 staffing level policy change downsizing to one-man posts. The puzzle was incomplete until 2018, 2019, after diagnosis, therapy, and piecing Deputy Hawes' facts together. A doubling of job duties to perform for 8 hours for 86 other humans from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. led to mental fatigue and stress, which exacerbated Deputy Hawes' chronic epilepsy, leading to permanent brain damage. Deputy Hawes' neurologist took him out of work on May 6, 2016. Then after 2 failed attempts to return to work, and in total a catastrophic number of seizures in 2016, as you'll see in the graph, Deputy Hawes was declared permanently disabled in February of 2018 due to cognitive impairment caused by epileptic seizures. Deputy Hawes is now retired on Maine Public Employees Retirement System Disabilities Benefit at 48 years old. Now our family understands that Deputy Hawes was the canary in the coal mine. Sheriff Joyce's sudden change in staffing level policy was made without consideration to the potential impacts on the employees and other predictable outcomes such as fatigue, burnout, attrition, risk of accidents. Other corrections officers have also suffered poor health after the staffing change, as evidenced by numerous testimonials by county employees at the monthly commissioners' meetings during the year of 2017. In researching fatigue in response to CO Meringue's July 2019 crash, I learned that OSHA directly states that employees suffering from simple fatigue may experience, among other consequences, worsening of existing chronic conditions such as diabetes and epilepsy. I thank you for your time, and I would welcome your questions.
Anyone have any questions for this testimony? If you want to display your signs quickly to make sure they're broadcast, then we're going to move
I
on.
think they are seen from there.
Okay, fine.
My question is for Alex.
Yeah, we can't let you.
Alex has been giving me a very hard time about getting data that 2 years ago,
I'm
he
sorry.
sent me in 3 days.
Your
And I'm
questions have to be
shocked
addressed
to
to the chair.
learn that you have purchased Munis with my county tax dollars, yet Alex is not keeping 80% of your financial management in Munis.
So thank you very much. And if you
So
have
you
a
don't
question,
care about that.
if you have a
What do you
question,
guys care about?
if you have a question, you can
Don't care
address it
about your
to me.
employees. You've proved that.
If you have a question, you can address it to me and. we
I
may
don't have any
answer
more
them.
questions. I'm done. I tried to be done 18 months ago.
All right, thank you very much.
Are you going to do anything about it, Commissioner Cloutier? Do you care about Raylan and why she died and all of that?
I think it's a pretty big stretch to point at this correction officer's job responsibilities. He would have made the judgment that day that he wanted to and could work an extra shift. You know, obviously, this is a terrible tragedy, but the circumstances were certainly not predictable, and the amount of time that he spent at the jail that day was not unusual by any standard that I'm aware of.
He'd been working 80-hour weeks for 5 years. If you don't have enough staff to fill your posts,
I can
is
assure
that
you
all mandatory overtime?
None of it
If
is.
there's nobody,
None of it is mandatory.
well,
overtime.
I have a FOIA, and I will be very interested to
Okay,
learn
well, we'll be
about
glad-
how the
You're
record
you're
keeping will
welcome to
show
investi-
that.
You're certainly welcome to investigate that. My understanding is that there is no mandatory overtime on a routine basis. at
That
the
is
jail.
BS, Commissioner Cloutier, and that's an example of your lack of knowledge about jail operations.
Well, I appreciate the help. All right. Any other questions, issues? All right. Next is the consent agenda. Any of these items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I move the slate.
So Commissioner
I'll second it.
Jameson has moved items 19054 through 19072, seconded by Commissioner Gordon. Any discussion on any of these items? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Next item, MMA, item 19073. We have received a check in the mail. Mr. Gailey, is it you or Mr. Kimball that'll be addressing this item?
I will be presenting it, and I just wanted to bring to light and seek Commissioner acceptance of the $24,703 dividend check from the Maine Municipal Association as a result of the county's good loss experience and loss prevention programs.
I think we should send it back.
So.
Unfortunately, Alex has already cashed it.
It's always a welcome sight when you see these dividend checks, and I will say that they don't happen every single year. So those years that they do come in the mail with the enclosed documentation, it makes you know that you've done something right over the last year or two to get that experience rating down and to qualify for the dividend that's paid out each year. So this item is in order for Commissioner acceptance of $24,703 from the Maine Municipal Association. Thank you.
So
Mr.
moved.
Gordon, so moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item 19074, Performance Evaluation Report, 2018.
Kristen Stiles, Community Development. If it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and present 74 and 75 together just to make it a little bit faster for you.
That would be fine. Is there any objection?
No.
No.
Seeing none?
Kristen, if you want to slide that over, that
This way?
podium over, over to the corner,
Perfect.
there you go.
I'm gonna turn the light off, yeah.
And the heat on. My toes are froze.
How do I make this bigger, Kristen?
I think you just, maybe on view?
No. View.
Sorry about that.
Oh, view up here.
It should be full page down somewhere.
Yeah, I thought so.
I think you're out of your PDF.
Yeah,
Go to the presentation, click on, there you go.
it should go to
Click
still
on
be
that.
able
Now
to.
go to view, and then full page. Keep going down, down, right there.
Thanks. Alrighty. Every September, we come to you and do a year-end report. We're on a fiscal year. Our program year starts July 1 and ends June 30th. So we time this, next page. We time this with our consolidated annual performance report that we turn into HUD. Each year we do this report. They would like to know what our accomplishments are for the past year and what our expenditures have been. In 2018-19, our FY18 fiscal year, we spent $1.1 million. It's slightly lower than we would like to see, but we have a few big projects that we think will be able to pull up that number and give us a much higher number for 2019. We did a little over $400,000 on infrastructure, $250 on housing, $200 on public services, $62 on planning studies, and $177 on program administration. This includes the administration of the South Portland and Bridgeton programs as well. Next page. So we have a few highlights from this year. Sorry, I wish I had a clicker, not slow you down. Next page. I'm going to go over our planning studies real quick. We did a Wyndham reuse study. We looked at their old fire station and what possible reuses we could have for it. We created a broadband playbook, which Travis would obviously be able to answer questions on a lot better than I could. We did a cultural broker study by the Opportunity Alliance to look at their new Mainers program. And we did a West End recreational needs study in South Portland. And this one in particular is really influencing our programs going forward for both CDBG and our home funding. So a few highlights from this year. One of the projects I really liked was a Harmon Field in Bridgeton. As you can see, it was a very lovely blue, and the stairs were in great condition. So we pretty much tore down the whole thing and rebuilt it. If you go to the next slide, we put brand new stairs on there, new siding, gutted the inside, all new electrical and lights. If we go on to the next one, we also added a shed, ADA accessible bathrooms, and they had a dugout, but it was actually on the field, which is very inconvenient if you hit towards first base. So we moved it off of the field. Next slide. One of the other good projects we did this year was the Casco Memorial Field. This is a multi-phase project. So if you're looking at the ground thinking it doesn't look very great, that's because the seeding is actually happening in the fall. But we got the snack shed put in place. We have all new electrical and plumbing going to it. And we added ADA accessible bathrooms. We also use funds to purchase a scoreboard and bleachers. But again, those won't be installed until the field is in proper condition. A few other projects we did this year. Port Resources received 2 grants from us. They did 1 in South Portland and 6 homes in Gorham. They're just about complete with all 6 of these homes. Port Resources is a nonprofit organization that provides housing and support services for severely handicapped adults. On Long Island, we replaced their tennis courts. And in addition to replacing their tennis court, they made a pickleball court next to it. And a pickleball national champion is now hosting a pickleball event there to teach seniors and teens how to play pickleball. We also did a freezer at the Cumberland Food Bank, which is able to now, they're able to now receive more frozen food because their numbers have been increasing in recent years. We did quite a few housing rehab projects. As I mentioned to you before, we have gotten rid of our housing rehab program because the nonprofit organization that was running it wasn't able to manage it anymore. So we had all these funds that were set aside just for housing rehab, and we stepped in as well as the city of Portland to help with the creating of the specs and got quite a few projects done this year. So 2 of these that are here, one's in Pownell, one's in Casco, and then we also on the right-hand side here, or I'm sorry, left-hand side, have our ADA ramp program, which we've been running for several years through Alpha One. This program is an ongoing program. We have given them funding again this coming year, and with the aging population we have, the number of people needing ramps continues to increase. They've actually changed their model a bit for this coming year and are going to be putting in metal ramps instead, because the metal ramps can easily be taken from one home to the next when somebody no longer needs a ramp, so we can continue reusing those materials and bring down the cost. 2 projects that are FY18 projects but have not started yet, will be starting this fall or in the spring, is the Walker Memorial Library in Westbrook. We're replacing all of the windows. The project is going out to bid next week, and we are also doing the Standish Playground. As you can see, the playground is in desperate need of some updating. So that project, they have applied for other funding sources, which are now all aligned, and we'll be putting that in April, hopefully, as soon as the ground thaws. For our public services, we did quite a few public services projects this year, especially in South Portland. As you can see, there's a lot of people that really benefited from these programs. One of my favorite is the backpack program in Bridgeton that's been running for quite a few years. They take backpacks and they fill them with food for the children to bring home on the weekend and on holidays so that they have some food to eat not when it's not school days. And if it's all right with you, I'll move on to 75 now, which is our FY19 home funds. We release our home funds application every June, and this year we have $423,225. You approved this budget when I spoke to you in April. What we do here is we put these funds out, and all of it was going to affordable housing this year. And we got 2 applications. If you slip to the next slide. One of the applications is for Emory Apartments in Westbrook. It was 30 units of senior affordable housing. Go to the next slide. So over here is one Larrabee Commons building. We did this with 2015 funds. This one up here, Larrabee Commons, is 2017 home funds. And then at the very top corner was what we approved last year, with 2018 home funds. And then this next parcel on the other side of the parking lot is what they're applying for this year. Almost all of that is senior affordable housing, and they've now, the planning board has requested that they no longer use the name Larrabee because it's getting way too confusing with so many buildings all being called some version of Larrabee. So it's been switched to Emery Apartments. The other application we got was for West End Apartments in South Portland. Just like the Westbrook project, they also applied and received home funds from us last year. So in this rendering here, over on this side is what we approved, and we'll break ground sometime, hopefully in November. And what they're applying for this year is phase 2 of that project. This one is 40 units of low-income family housing, and they're doing 12 units of market rate housing. This is something that helps them score better by mixing in income levels. So as you can see, this is just another rendering of it. We had building 1, which was already funded, and building 2 is what they applied for this year. So it was very, very close. We had a tough time with this. In the past, when scores have come in this close, we tend to split the funding and give both projects funding. What has happened, though, is with the LIHTC funds, it's a really competitive year this year, and we were afraid that if we didn't fully fund the highest scoring project, we'd end up hurting both applicants. So since the West End project scored higher, they're receiving the full amount of funds, if you approve it. And that's all I have for you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can pass 074 by approving receipt of that report. I have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moving and seconded to approval of the evaluation report. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I do have one comment, Mr. Chairman. It seems like we're getting into the recreational business through the CDBG funds.
Well,
And that's okay.
seems like that particular, I don't want to disparage it too badly, but could use a couple of soccer balls for sure. So the 19075 approval of the home funds project, that would be the West End South Portland project, 40 and 12,
Correct.
40 affordable and 12 market rate. Do I have a motion on that item?
Move we approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
My discussion is we need more housing than this. This is a good start. We've been working my wife and I have been working sort of as a project to locate somebody who's had to sell his house, trying to find him an affordable apartment for somebody who's got a little bit of money but not enough to, and it was months and months and months of just slogging through everything, all kinds of applications. We finally found him an efficiency at a vast amount of money that just astounds me. So I'm looking at this thinking, when they get built, I'll tell them about it, and maybe he can get in there. But we desperately need housing for people who don't have lots of money, and this is a good start.
Can I ask a question about the, assuming they want to apply again, is the Westbrook project still eligible for funding if it?
Yes.
If it
Yes, we'll highly encourage them to apply again. We're hoping that they both
Changing
receive.
that name was bad luck, that's all.
We're hoping they both receive LIHTC funds. The LIHTC application is due at the end of the month, and they'll find out, I believe, in December if they receive it. I'm guessing if either one or both of them do or don't receive it, they'll come back to us and ask for funding next year.
Yeah.
And Kristen, these reports you post online? Our
Yes.
Cumberland website?
Yes.
Great, because I think it's not a well-known program out there, but but the CDBG program does great work throughout the county. And we appreciate yours and your staff's effort and all the towns who have hosted projects.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we try and keep the website up to date with whatever we're doing, and all of the reports are available on there, going back all the way to 2007.
Thank you.
Very good.
Do we have a vote on that one?
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Nice catch.
I couldn't remember.
The next item is a presentation of the general fund budget by the county manager.
Thank you. This evening, I bring forth the manager's proposed 2020 budget. As the commissioners are aware, this happens the first meeting of September of each year. And the following order on your agenda this evening would be for the appointment of the Finance Committee, made up of elected individuals from the communities that comprise Cumberland County. Those elected individuals serve as a finance committee and put another set of eyes on the proposed budget. Ultimately, bringing forth a recommendation to the commissioners sometime in November for the commissioners to consider through your deliberations of the budget, ultimately leading up to a December vote. But we start off here in September with the proposed budget that has been worked on since June, July of this year with the department heads and Alex and myself working through to get us to this evening. The purpose of the slideshow is to give you kind of a 30,000-foot look at where the budget stands. And subsequently, over the next 2 or 3 months, we will drill deeper into this budget line by line, not only with the Finance Committee, but also the county commissioners, ultimately coming to some agreement prior to December's meeting of acceptance. So I'll jump into the budget here and give a look at what's being proposed for 2020. First is our total budget expenditures. This budget is not only our total expenses, but it also brings in our enterprise funds and our grants. So total expenses are just over $46,500,000. You bring in the enterprises of just under 11 million and grants of just under 2 million. Our total expenditures are $59,491,499. Percent change of 4.46 over 2019 budget year. We jump into the jail expenses. As the commissioners are aware, you've seen these numbers before because you worked through the jail budget in a workshop in May and approval in June because the jail runs on a July to June budget year. However, the numbers do get wrapped into our general fund budget and it all gets packaged together for our warrant that will be sent out in February, March of 2020. That's how we raise the funds. So total jail revenues, just under 6.4 million, 3.95% over last year. Our jail expenses are just over 767,500, or 3.98%. The needs from taxes for the jail budget is 4%. That 4% is dictated by state statute. We cannot exceed the 4%, and thus we raise the 4% in support of our jail. Jumping over the cross-insurance arena, again, you work through this budget in May and June, as it is a fiscal year budget, a July to June budget. And this year, the 2019-20 budget is just under 3.5 million, and that is actually a reduction of $1,787 from the 2018-19 budget year, or a negative 0.05% increase. So bringing together the county, the jail, and the cross-insurance, those are our three large budget areas. Our total dollar change is just over $1.5 million in needs from taxes, or 4.69%. This is how it's shown in a pie graph on distribution between the two or the three budgets. Our debt, capital, and tax anticipation note all combined We're seeing some reductions in the principal for bonds and interests. We're also seeing a reduction in the capital reserve for the CIA. We're holding flat with the TAN loan. We feel as though the 191 was increased by 50,000 last year at this time. We feel as though that will hold steady for us for the 2020 TAN. So all in all, the dollar change is just under $38,400, or a 2.45% increase. Human services and grants. This year, I've lumped the human services and grants under one single line item, so this is more of a chart in transition where I've zeroed out the human service line and the grants line. I've done this largely because our human service money has turned into a single contribution to Thrive 2027, with the exception of the Tedford House out of Brunswick, which provides homeless services there. In totality, I'm proposing a human service and grants budget of $286,000. That is a slight increase over the combined two accounts of last year, or this year, I should say, of just over $3,400, an increase of 1.21%. I just wanted to list out some notable expenses in the 2020 budget. I won't go down through there, but I think you can quickly read them. We do have a number of staff additions and one elimination, and I'll take some time to run through this. We currently have a half-time custodian down at the jail. It's in the facilities department. There is a need to add more hours to this individual, so we're proposing an increase to make this person a full-time employee at a cost of $25,000. Working with the district attorney's office, there is a desire to hire a half-year human traffic advocate. This would ultimately turn into a full year. We would just hire the person at 6 months for 2020, and then we'll package up the remaining 6 months in 2021. That is at a cost of $24,891. We have had a significant change in the probate laws around guardianship. That was a legislative change. You heard from me probably 3 or 4 months ago, kind of putting this on your radar, that this was all going to fall out in August and September of this year. And it is a huge workload for the probate staff, in particular one staff person. So Nadine Daniels, the Registrar of Probate, has requested for us to hire a 20-hour-a-week assistant. That person has been hired, and that was run by the commissioners a number of months ago, just to put it on your radar that the request would be forthcoming in the budget. Nadine's taking current budget dollars to package up that 20-hour position to the end of the year. This adds the 20-hour position into the budget for 2020 at $21,900.
Do you envision that going full-time?
At this time, we do not, because we're going to just test to see where we need to be and how much time is needed, but there was a definite belief that there was going to be more time needed than just a single person working on this. We are adding 20 hours per diem time at the communications department. We have 20-hour per diem position up there. We're adding an additional 20 hours in this budget for just $16,640. EMA, I'll skip down one. EMA is eliminating one position, one of their planning positions. They feel as though with the hiring of some new employees, they're able to distribute the workload on a more efficient manner, but they are interested in allocating $20,000 and having a paid internship. They have had 2 interns, I believe, over the last 6 or 8 months who have been complete crackerjacks for them, and they would like to continue that and feel as though a paid internship would attract some quality interns that could offset the need for that planner's position. We also are bringing forth a civil deputy position. It's a full-time position, and associated costs around that, and that's at just over $67,000. That is also, you'll see a balancing deficit in the enterprise fund around the civil deputy position, as the sheriff is proposing to reallocate and rejuggle the civil deputies' positions in the civil budget. And so it's a wash, but I'm showing it as a full-time hire here on this sheet. We need to increase a patrol deputy, because in the 2019 budget, the commissioners allowed for staff to fund a 6-month position starting July 1st of this year. In the 2020 budget, we need to backfill the other 6 months to make it a full-time position. And that is at $41,845. That is the same story around the administrative sergeant in the sheriff's office. That was a July 1st hire, and we need to backfill another 6 months of salary and benefits on that to make it a full-time position for 2020. And then the same holds true for the maintenance technician at the jail. That was a plumber / maintenance person. That was a July hire, and we were packaging up the remaining portion in the 2020 budget. Lastly, we worked with the commissioners a number of months ago. Joe Chabelle from EMA was down talking about the Youth Fire Safety Coordinator and the program that to be offered in conjunction and partnership with the Cumberland County Fire Chiefs Association. So this position has been hired. We are on the hook as of January 1st, 2020 for the position salary, which is $13,000 a year. And so we have built that into this budget. A few revenue changes. We don't have many revenues, but when we do have changes, it's worthwhile to show the changes. As you can see, the civil process, that's a $67,000 amount coming out of the enterprise fund over into the general fund. Got regional communications. We've added a few towns, which increased there. Parking garage is doing rather well. I think Ray out in the parking garage is selling each space 9 times a day, so we'll keep his enthusiasm. And his marketing is doing well in the parking garage. Marshal Service inmate housing is up 100,000. County inmate housing, 200,000. Although we do see a reduction of $100,000 coming out of holding ICE inmates. And then we are proposing $110,000 out of the Registry of Deeds revenue. As the day I became manager, Alex and I had a long talk around the level of revenue that we had, that we expected the Registry of Deeds to come up with is very optimistic, let's just say that. And I think over the last couple of years with the housing market rebounding and somewhat booming, we've able to come close or at least meet the revenue number. However, we don't feel that way going into 2020. We think there may be a softening of the market. $110,000 is really the beginning of ratcheting down this revenue. This time next year, you'll probably see another $100,000 being proposed, as we need to address this, and we need to address this starting now, and it's probably going to take us a couple of years to get where we think is a sustainable number that we can live by, instead of just putting a number in there and not meeting it. And so this year, we're proposing a $110,000 reduction.
Jim, can you remind us what the budgeted number is today, if you remember?
Offhand?
3127 is the number I would throw out, but let's see if I just,
So, okay. I think at one point we had it up to 3.5 or something, and that was the year we started a recession, if I remember right, so.
Well, there's
3.5 did not appear on the audit report at the end of the year.
There was a lot of emphasis at the state legislature a number of years ago around revenues being generated by the registries. And there was a lot of tweaking of the different revenues that a registry could receive. And that was when I previously talked about the 500 free copies. That was when that rolled out too. When all that was being done, it was, there was a very optimistic view of that we were gonna get a lot more revenue in here than, based on the new law than what is reality. And I think the only thing that's been holding or keeping this boat afloat over the last couple of years has been the robust market that we've seen.
I mean, this is a combination of copy fees and our slice of the transfer tax, isn't it? Is there anything else in
Recording fees.
revenue? Well, recording fees. That, okay, yeah.
And who gets the month-to-month fee for online access?
The month-to-month fee for online access, I believe that's what gets put into the recording fee line, but.
And that would be, well, that's copy fees, online access.
Basically, yeah, that's what I'm talking
I
about.
mean, it's supposed to be, I've,
Do you mind if I jump in on that a little bit? This was something I was going to talk about in sort of the staff portion, but it seems applicable now. You've probably heard us talk about how we're keeping a very close eye on the deeds revenues lately, and thus far through this year, they are remaining on pace to hit budget again, but what we are seeing that is ominous is the number of physical transactions is declining. So what we are seeing is this high sales price but lower volume. When that's combined with some of the other warning signs that we're seeing that I will discuss later, it has sort of an eerily familiar feel to, say, 2007 or 2008 period. I know, but that's what it feels like, and that's why we're doing what we're doing.
On top of
Okay,
it
and
all,
on
the-
that gloomy note, we
Yep.
will,
Keep on going.
sure.
We talked about non-debt CIP. This year, we have, we're proposing not to bond. We do not feel as though we have a substantial amount in the hopper to bond, and it's largely because of the next slide, but I'll jump into this slide first. So what we have done is we have created a little bit longer list in the non-debt CIP of just over $663,000. I think last year's non-debt CIP was around $590,000, so a little bit more than what we did last year. But that is in lieu of pulling a bond, because we just didn't feel as though we had a substantial enough in the hopper to move forward. So I won't go down through here, but it includes everything from patrol to sheriff to jail, the cross insurance arena, EMA, IT, courthouse executive and communications in the non-debt CIP.
Jim, I have a question.
Yeah.
What's county aerial flyover?
Well, every 2 or 3 years, the state of Maine Office of GIS comes to Cumberland County and updates the aerial photos. And every town contributes some funds. And a number of years ago, the county contributed or committed that every time this happened, I think it's $21,000 or $28,000 that we pay into it to kind of buy down the aerial so that the towns aren't paying as much. So this, by putting this in, we're going to have a year over year over year of $7,000 requests. Typically, this number has been located in the IT director's budget. So it's just a slide over from the IT director's budget into the non-debt CIP.
So is this aerial photography, or is this the GIS sort of programming costs? I
It
mean,
is the aerial photos that get turned into base layers for GIS.
okay. So this is not the stuff that ends up on Google Earth. This is the,
No.
I know there's a different, state has its own database, I think you can still get into for that, which are, yeah, very useful things to know about. Okay, thank you.
So now jumping over into, this is what we have looked at, and Alex, Bruce Tarbox, and myself met one day, and we looked at what projects were being funded out of the 2018 bond, what projects have been completed and have left money on the table, so to speak, and what projects are we not going to go forward with? Largely, maybe they're not needed at this point, or maybe the timing of getting them off the ground at this point does not line up with the expiration of the bond. And so we've canceled a few programs or projects, and so it freed up some money in the 2018 bond that we needed to allocate projects to. And so these are the projects that we bring forth. I think the only one that already had some 2018 bond money in was the courthouse-state air handler 1 and 2 rebuild. That line, that $210,000, that's not all new money, it's just I think there's $50,000 or $60,000 added to it. The other items would normally be projects that would push towards a 2020 bond, but because we needed to eat up the 2018 bond proceeds, we're sliding these projects in to cover the 2018.
Those were all part of our long-term plan.
Yes.
Steve?
Jimmy, the only thing that concerns me is the CIA. I know that I'm not on that officially, but having attended a couple of meetings, my concern is they're looking for a brine chiller and then how to heat the building. And they're not trying to put those two things together. So you're dumping heat out and then you're buying gas to heat the building. And somewhere along the line, I thought that they were going to do some sort of a study where they could try to use the waste heat to for such.
And they have looked at that. Engineers out of Spectra headquarters down in Philadelphia has looked at the type of system that we have here and the type of heat system that we have here, and they have not given a good indication that anything would work because of the type of systems that we're running here. And so it has not been a project that we have really dumped a whole ton of time into at this point, and we still need to learn more from the engineer, but early indications and review over there is that it's not going to be worth the while.
We'll get an update when that,
Absolutely.
When do you expect to have an update?
That update, there's no pressing time because we can't put that chiller in until, at earliest, the end of April, 1st of May, because we have to wait for hockey season to end. Ice goes in about 3 weeks, and when that's gonna lock us out of the building from putting that chiller in, because that brine chiller's the guts of making ice. So we will be working on that and getting a report over the next 6 months.
The current chiller will survive the season.
We're hoping. It was a scary sight when it went down last year in the middle of a hockey game, because it keeps the ice cold and
It turned into water polo.
it turns into water, yeah. It wasn't freezing up, and so they had to scramble, and they
Play faster, guys.
they brought it back to life during the game, and the ice firmed up. But it is a old unit, it's in need of replacement, and it's one of those ones, now that you have an anchor tenant who's a hockey team, you kind of have to have ice. And so we can't play the guessing game anymore for it.
okay.
And that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
If there are questions that anybody wants to go over today, right now would be fine. Subject, of course, to the next item on the agenda, which is to bring on the hordes of the Finance Committee to start working on this in detail themselves and have a report for us when they finish their work. So, any questions, any issues? I have a motion accepting.
I got a couple of comments. The only comments I have is, it seems right now, and maybe, and I realize times are going to change, but if we're ever going to do some big projects, that this is the time with the money available at the interest rates that are out there. Well, we keep saying that every year, and every year they keep going down, but as our illustrious finance individual here, Alex, is pointing out to us, is that things may change. But I think we do have some projects that we should at least be giving some consideration to. One is there's a big demand for the parking over here. We should think about something with the parking garage, and that's a self-paying unit. There's a couple of projects like that that I'd like to see the commissioners at least debate, so that we can get them on the agenda if we want to move that way. If we don't, that's certainly our prerogative. If we don't put them forth and get them studied so that can move forward, it'll never happen.
We have a workshop scheduled for 2 weeks from today. I don't remember every topic that's on there, but there's several.
It's getting pretty full at this point in time.
But
All
it
of them are
would,
gonna go.
Okay.
That's the October, September list.
it is not a terrible idea as far as I'm concerned, and I'm be glad to hear what everybody else thinks. If there are particular projects that somebody has had in mind as something that would be a good thing to do someday, I have heard through the grapevine that we might be able to refinance some of our debt and reduce our interest rate somehow, and that's being looked at. But I keep an eye on the 10-year bond, and it's been remarkably well-behaved compared to American interest rates, and there's still all of those European interest rates to be achieved, where people pay us to give us money. And whether we'll get to that, we'll see, but it doesn't look lately like interest rates are swinging upward very fast at the moment. So it would be a good time to discuss, at least in concept, some of those projects if we wanted to give ourselves 20 minutes to do that.
Happy to add it to our workshop. And the other thing is,
It would be good to send an email to somebody mentioning the project so that we could have a little laundry list if that's going to be a discussion topic.
we saw, and if we're serious about it, we should add it to our strategic plan going forward.
Right. Yeah, we won't do that in 2 weeks, but
Right. Right.
we'll have the ideas in front of us.
In early 2020.
Okay, can we have a motion then to accept and refer to the Finance Committee the budget as presented by the county manager?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item is an approval, it's unanimous, is the appointment of the Finance Committee. The proposed incumbents are mentioned in our materials. Any questions, issues? No?
Do we have a set of dates where we're gonna?
I have not. I was waiting for the approval this evening, and then I'll reach out to the three individuals and start coordinating what's best dates over the next 3 months.
Very good.
Can I have a motion then to appoint the three individuals as finance members? Stephen?
Moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. The individuals involved, just to read for the record.
Is there enough time?
is, well, yes. From District 1, no incumbent at the moment. District 2 has one appointee, Holly Hancock from Casco, and one vacancy. District 3, William Stiles from Cumberland, and William Witten of recent fame and memory from North Yarmouth. And then District 4 and 5 do not have representatives at this point. All those in favor of appointing those individuals, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
I don't have
Very good. 19078 is the authorization of the contractual financial incentive fee to the manager of the CIA. I have a motion on that item.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded to pay the contractually required fee to Spectra. Jim, did you have any comments on any of this, or Alex?
I was just only going to say that this is something that is in the management agreement between the county and Spectra. It is an annual sit-down that the general manager and I have. There was criteria that was established in the 2015-16 fiscal year that provides guidance on how we assign scoring. The Financial fee, it's broken up into three sections: the financial fee, the food and beverage, and the qualitative fee. Really, the financial fee is a fixed dollar or percentage, and I really don't have a lot of, I have zero wiggle room. It is what it is. The food and beverage is very similar, and that is set criteria, and it is what it is. The qualitative fee is where I spend most of my time working with the general manager, and that under the qualitative fee, it's broken up into four categories: customer service, quality of food, achievement of goals, and maintenance and repairs. The general manager and I work through these, and we come up with she comes up with a score, and then I come up with a score, and we work through what the score is. In the end, we are proposing under the financial incentive fee, a $52,881 incentive, food and beverage, $17,815, and a qualitative, $17,311, for a total of $88,007. I will say that that is double of what we paid last year. I think it was $44,000 or $46,000 what we paid. It is a significant increase in the incentive fee when you add 36 hockey games into the building, because the event numbers go up, the concessions go up, food and beverage, and so it does the management company well by adding a hockey team into the building. So that's why we're seeing almost a doubling of the incentive fee. So with that said, I'd ask for the commissioners to approve the 2018-19 financial incentive fee in the amount of $88,007. And just for a side note, the budget included $85,000, so it was a good guess on my part back in April. Came close, but not close enough.
We don't suffer too terribly from having those hockey games either, right? Our revenues don't get hit too hard. No. Can we have a motion to approve that fee?
Actually, I already moved and
Moved and
seconded.
seconded? I'm sorry. Thank you. Discussion, any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the item say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Final item is the award of a bid to Port City Mechanical to replace the hot water tanks at the Cumberland County Jail. Anyone want to speak to this item?
Yeah, I'll just quickly pitch it for Bruce Tarbox, who is out of the state today. We currently have two 1,500-gallon water tanks sitting on the second floor at the jail. They are starting to weep a little around the flanges, which is giving Bruce the indication that these water tanks are on their way out. Bruce has had engineers in to look at them. They feel as though he does have a little bit of time, but not a lot of time. And so we are moving forward with the replacement of these water tanks, because I think the last thing we need is 1,500 gallons or 3,000 gallons of water coming from the second floor to the first floor in the jail. So the proposal is...
No stored hot water.
Yeah. So the proposal is to actually reduce the size of the units, because they're more efficient units in today's world than what they were 26 years ago when these units were put in. So we're actually putting two 700-gallon tanks in. So almost cutting each tank right in half, if not more. And so the bid went out. It spec'd out a certain tank for the work, but it also allowed the consultant or the bidders to put an alternate tank in, and that's why when you see in your packet, there's an alternate bid. Well, we have opted not to go into the alternate bid, even though in one case it's $50,000 less than the base bid. The reason behind that is that they bid a cheaper tank that is glass lined, and it only has a 2-year warranty on it. And it has a life expectancy of about 10 to 12 years. That is not something that we want to do in 10 or 12 years, is put an inferior tank in today's world and then do it again in 12 years. So we're sticking with our base bid, which the base bid was 2 tanks that are nickel shield lined and have a 25-year warranty on them. So we feel as though we pay a little bit more today, we get a longer longevity and longer warranty out of these things. And so what I'm bringing forth to you this evening is an award bid to Port City Mechanical for the base bid of $201,300 for the hot water tanks at the jail. Thank you.
Any chance we can put them on the first floor this time?
Yeah, if there was room, yeah.
How long will the installation take, Jim?
I believe it's rather quick once they get the bigger tanks out of there. It's gonna be a phased approach because you gotta keep one tank active, supplying hot water to the jail, so it's gonna be somewhat of a phased approach in there, but probably a couple weeks.
We get a motion on this item, and then we'll have any discussion anybody wants to have.
I move approval of this.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded.
Yeah,
Discussion, Steve?
Well, more of a comment to add with what Jim said. A lot of people don't realize this, but Portland Water District water from Sebago is very soft, and Sears and Roebuck's has the worst time with their warranties in the country, in the state, because of the soft water and its ability to attack the lining of hot water tanks. So 25 years, I'll bet they pay for it a couple times.
Anything else? All those in favor of this item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. So next is our comments. We'll start with the city manager, county manager.
Somewhere, yeah.
One of those.
Whoever. It'll be the state- it'll be the
Superintendent
state
of
manager
schools,
for
governor of
anything.
Maine, what do we got here? Yeah.
I just have a few things. Over at the Cross Insurance Arena, we're, had a very busy middle of August with 8 shows of Cirque du Soleil. Very well done, and a great summer programming that we typically don't get, especially for 8 shows. So that was a Wednesday to Sunday event over at the Cross Insurance Arena. They'll be heating up towards the end of this month, once again with bull riding and a concert, and then once October hits, that's hockey season, so 36 games between October and April will occupy, and then we'll piece together concerts and other shows in there. One item that we had on this evening's agenda is the contract for regional assessing services for North Yarmouth. That was actually started last week. Renee LaChapelle, we just retired her back in July. She has been willing to come back and work part-time for us, 1 day, maybe 2 days a week, on as part of the contract with North Yarmouth in being North Yarmouth's sworn assessor for 1 year. And she's gonna go in and work, clean up, and bring the files into compliance of what regional assessing expects the files to look like. And then we'll pass the ball over next summer to the regional assessing program here in the county, and we will carry it from there. And so we feel it's a great role that Renee is doing for us. It allows our current staff to pay attention to the 5 communities that we currently have under contract for at least 2+ years now. And Renee is going to focus on bringing North Yarmouth into compliance with our protocols in regional assessing. So we look forward to working with Renee for the next 8 or 9 months. Another service that we are providing, that we're rolling out as of October 1st, is human resource services. We have heard through many town managers from small communities in the county that the managers are the HR directors, or they don't have the ability to have an HR director on staff. And so what we're looking to do is to help fill that void. Many times, and my apologies to the attorneys on the commission, but many times the managers are picking up the phone and calling their attorney at $200 an hour, asking for
That's
HR.
cheap.
I gotta raise my raise.
Asking for employment law advice and guidance on how to maneuver through a situation. We have developed, in conjunction with the HR staff, a short list. We call it Phase 1 of the service, and it is just touching upon some low-hanging fruit that HR can help out towns in kind of preventing that phone call going to the attorney and having a large legal bill. And so it's our hopes that come October 1st, we will be providing that service to a number of communities. At this point, we're just seeing and testing the waters as a beta program to see whether it's something of interest, and then we will build from there. And maybe a fee-based service down the road when we have a larger à la carte menu, so to speak. But it's an exciting proposal at this point, and we're moving forward, October 1st start date. And then lastly, I'll just update you all at the email. We do have a number of items for workshop. We've added another one this evening, just a few minutes ago. And so, though we haven't had workshops for the last couple months, it does look like we will probably be meeting the late September for a workshop and late October, at least, for a workshop. Probably late November too, because that's when we usually dig into the budget a little bit more before this December date. So probably the next 3 months, we will be holding 2 meetings a month. So with that, I'll end my communications. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Alex, do you have anything for us tonight?
Just one other comment, and I think it's been alluded to. One thing that's going to be showing up, I believe, on the next month's agenda is an opportunity to refinance the 2012 bond for Cross Insurance Arena. And that is surprising on a couple of levels in that the non-taxable or tax-free bond can no longer be financed. It has to be financed on a taxable basis. And that's still cheaper.
Wow.
Yeah, see, so what's interesting about that, aside from the obviousness of, well, we should do this, is when the bond rates get that low, it tends to be an indicator that people are moving towards the safe money. That, what is occurring, and Jim's comment about next year's budget, those things are all happening. We do appear to be in that interesting state where there are some future signs that are a little on the negative side, while the economy at present is still going well. So we do appear to be in that state right now, just as a heads up for everyone.
Alex, what's the reason for the non-taxable being unavailable?
That was some legislation that went through,
Legislation, it's not
Yep.
that there was.
Federal rate.
federal regulation did away with it.
Travis?
The one thing I'll mention is a new update on brown-tail moths. I give you all updates on those little critters every couple of months. We have been working with the Speaker of the House for the past year or so, including legislation to try and fund research at the university to eradicate the brown-tail moth. A couple of funding measures made it to a point at the State House but didn't make it all the way. We've been encouraged by the university to send them a direct appeal asking them to prioritize brown-tail moth research because now is the time of year when they start to look at what they plan on researching in the upcoming year. They've had some turnover in that particular field. They need to know that it's important as they make hiring decisions and put together sort of their ask for what they want to fund in the future. So whether the money is appropriated from the state or not, we've been sort of encouraged to let them know how important it is, so they're sort of structurally prepared to keep studying brown-tail moth eradication. It's a long way of saying Speaker Gideon is going to submit a letter to the university. Senator Kathy Breen, who's the chair of the Appropriations Committee, is going to be the Senate co-sign. We've pulled together half a dozen counties so far, presumably including ours. Jim has agreed to sign. For us, I would love to include all of us if you're all interested in adding your names. So we have half a dozen counties, about 15 towns, 15 or 16 legislators so far who have all agreed to sign on to this letter. And it's purely a letter encouraging the university to prioritize research for brown-tail moth eradication. So with your permission, we would love to add your names alongside the county managers to what's becoming a pretty robust list of supporters for that issue.
My name might wreck it, but go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask quick? Travis, how about a 30,000-foot take on what's going on in the legislature now? Will happen.
What's upcoming? It's hard to say. With our constant number one issue, jail funding, the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee is going to begin the process of taking all of the bills that touch jail funding in one way or another, including just give it more money, adjust who's responsible for what. There were all of these different ideas that legislators brought in this year, and the committee sort of combined them all in one and carried it over. And so they've scheduled 5 meetings through the fall to begin to sort of suss through all of those ideas, to work with the department, to work with interested parties. I know Sheriff Joyce has been in the middle of it from the beginning, to try and come up with what may be a potential vehicle for next year to address jail funding. Currently, we're funded at the 18 million and change, which we were satisfied with system-wide, but there's always the opportunity to address it in a better way. So those meetings begin, that's later this month, right, Sheriff?
October 22nd.
October, okay, sorry, late October. And then there are 5 of them in pretty rapid succession. Beyond that, I mean, we accomplished most of the legislative agenda that we rolled out at the beginning of the year. There were a few items that have, that morphed into much different things. For instance, we went up with this bill that would create a partnership with us in York County to take over some health and human service functions. That committee wanted to make it much bigger and consider many other things that they might want to hand off to us. What they ended up doing is instructing the department to meet with us directly. So aside from that, I think virtually everything else that we either get directly involved in or supported, aside from broadband bonds, ended in a pretty positive place. So I would love to hear from you all over the next couple of months if you have identified emergency legislative priorities that you would like us to work on, that we, should we need to find a sponsor. My guess would be that Legislative Council is not going to be interested in letting in very much. It'll have to be a real emergency. My guess is that with the wave of sweeping legislative change that happened in Augusta this year, this will be a much slower, less dramatic year. So I think if we have very specific needs, we'll absolutely walk them up there. But we had a very good 2019, and I think that we're well positioned to move into future legislatures with the progress that we made this year.
Well done.
Barbara, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Sheriff?
Thank you. One thing that I sent you an email earlier today, we're going to start rolling out a medication-assisted treatment program next Monday. The medical staff, the jail staff have been working on this for about a year now. And phase 1 is going to be that anybody who is leaving the jail can have Narcan given to them to carry out with them with some training. So phase 1 is we're waiting for the Narcan, and that will be any inmate can sign up to take that with them in case they run into somebody that overdoses. On Monday, phase 2 will begin in earnest. It unfortunately comes at a time when we're working to try to fill vacancies in the jail. Medical is trying to work to fill vacancies in medical. But we wanted to start it in June. June became September 15th. We got to start it and find out where our weaknesses are. Last week, the committee met with Gordon Smith, who's the opioid director for the governor. There's some funding out there that if we get this up and running prior to the end of the year, that there's some funding. So he kind of coached me on what I need to do to get a letter going so that we can get a coordinator so that somebody can get these inmates and start making connections in the communities before they leave, to actually track them. And then eventually, phase 3, which I project will be about a year out, is going to be identifying people that aren't on medication. So let's back up. Phase 2, if an inmate comes in and they're on a certified MAT program with a provider, then we will continue that medication throughout their stay at the jail. So that's phase 2. Phase 3 will be somebody comes in, they're not on a medicated program, but they're interested, then we will, if medically necessary, start them on whatever medication suits them. Right now, as of Monday, the 2 options are methadone and buprenorphine, or basically Suboxone. So those are the 2 options. So we're kind of happy to kind of get it off the ground. There have been people that think that we just flip a light switch and we have a program. We've been kind of dabbling with it. The major has worked with the medical staff to get people that are coming in for 7 to 10 days and trying to see how that's going to work out. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. We don't think it's going to be a huge number coming in, but we're going to see it grow over the period of time. Travis worked on a grant that they're working kind of to see if there's any federal money. I think their program's over in January, and that's a planning. So I call that, or at least told Gordon Smith, that's kind of the polishing of the apple. We're going to grow the apple and produce the apple next Monday, and then hopefully this grant with their planning and looking at our mock-up of a program will actually polish that, and maybe there's some federal funds that come along with that. So really that's a lot about what we're working on. Legislative-wise, I think I'm on a bunch of different committees, a lot with mental health. Frankly, as I sit here, when I hear about the committees, I'm not sure which mental health committee I'm on, because there's about 7 of them. And then we are going to be also looking at the jail funding as well. And there's another committee I'm on for pretrial and bail, looking at bail to see if our bail system, the way it is now, is as efficient. So a lot of stuff going on. I hope that it's a little bit more laid back in 2020, because 2019 seemed to be a pretty busy year out there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
On a different topic, can you give us a quick little update on staffing at the jail and mandatory? We had a comment this afternoon or this evening about overtime and fatigue and all of that. Can you just bring us up to date on
Sure.
the status of mandatory overtime, if there's any, and whatever the union contract requires at this point?
We're down about 33 people.
That's out of a total of how many would you?
About 160. I mean, the jail's run by about 190 people. So, but if you remember right, back in 2015, when we lowered the numbers in the pods, we tried to get rid of some positions to pay for raises that had been negotiated. And really, by lowering those numbers, was able to get the retroactive pay. People forget that. So we're down 30. I'm encouraged to find out that people that have been around in the jail business more than I, at least in Cumberland, say that we've been down 40 plus, before. The offer's been out for the union to do mandatory overtime, where, everybody has to do a certain amount of overtime to pick up the slack. We are holding people over. If you got to fill up to a minimum staffing to keep the jail safe, we will do that. And it all depends. I mean, July and August, especially the last week of August, there were a fair amount of people that were being held over, forced over to cover shifts. We've seen that drop off a little bit. Today, I understand that HR and the corrections staff interviewed 8 or 9 people. And out of the 8 or 9, 8 of them look pretty good. And there's a small group that I understand already have a certification, so we don't have to get them trained. So we can put those folks in. We're losing, we're losing to law enforcement. I mean, I just hired a guy out of law enforcement. It was a good corrections officer. We're losing to other agencies because of that. People want to have their dream of being a law enforcement officer, and actually I support that. We're losing to some other places, welders and yada, 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 trades. And then we've had a couple people, or at least one person that, really lives closer to another jail, so as much as they didn't want to leave, it was kind of a raise for them. So we're pretty vigilant on trying to fill correction spots. Now, a year ago, I was able to stand up here and say we weren't really having a big issue with law enforcement officers, while other agencies were, and they were actually having hiring bonuses or, sign-on bonuses. We're starting to see that a little bit. Again, we have applicants coming in, but it's, instead of 10 or 15, we're down to like 7 or 8. So we're kind of seeing that, and, we may start seeing that in law enforcement too. Bottom line is, unemployment's down. You've never heard a kid say, when I grow up, I want to be a corrections officer. It's a tough job. There are a lot of things that are in the fine print that nobody sees, and then when they get in there and they find out what they have to do, be a nurse, be a sociologist, be a psychologist, do CIT, and all that other stuff that it's just not sitting and watching inmates. It's not babysitting adults. There's a lot more to it. We got to find new ways of making that job attractive. And the further north you go, the less vacancies they have because there's not a lot of jobs up there. But the further south, we're not an anomaly. So am I concerned? Yeah, I'm always concerned. It's always nice to have it so that you're fully staffed and you cut down on overtime. But that's where we are. And I have full confidence in the major that if things get really, really bad, that he's going to mention that in staff. Our nursing staff, we're seeing that as well. We just had a job fair, and we sent law enforcement, we sent corrections, and I asked the nursing or the medical group to go up there because they're trying to find nursing staff to come in. And really, they're using temporaries to come in, and some of them are not used to working in a jail. They're used to working in a nursing home or in a hospital, and they're coming in and getting their eyes wide open on some of the stuff we're seeing. So it's not only in corrections, it's in our medical as well. So I know it's probably a lot more than what you wanted to hear, but.
No, that's fine. Steve.
One other question to kind of prod you along. Can you allude to more of the recruiting activities that you actually do so that the public will know that you're not just sitting behind your desk waiting for people to come in?
Well, first of all, about a year or so, 2 years ago, we put together a video. Let's face it, you have to find a reason why people want to come into the job. So this video really encompasses the whole operation. It's not law enforcement, it's not corrections, it's both. We've sent people to job fairs. We've sent people to job fairs outside the state of Maine. Even though we didn't meet my goal of sending people, I found out in a class that Norwich University in Vermont, very good criminal justice program. It's quite a ways away, but even Vermont is not tapping into the people graduating out of there. So my hope is to send somebody to Norwich, Vermont. But that's a 3 or 4 hour drive just to get there, to do that. So, what we're finding is, we're trying to recruit veterans. That was the last job fair we had, was trying to recruit veterans. I think there was some moderate interest, but when a veteran is coming out, they have a lot of choices. And probably law enforcement and corrections, considering what some of them have been through and seen, is not their first choice. But for others, it will be, because they're natural-born leaders and probably more of a leader than I am standing here today. So we've tried to tap into that group as well. And then, of course, we're trying to build our Explorer posts so that, you're grooming people at 14 through 21 to see if they want to be corrections officers. I've got at least 3 people that I know of that came through an Explorer program, one of which was ours. And then we're reaching out to high schools, colleges. The reality is, often we're chasing the same people that other jails in the area are chasing as well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Commissioner Ratones,
No, I'm all set.
Commissioner Jameson.
Just briefly, Would like to congratulate the county employees for having a great safety record this past year. I think it goes all the way from the top to the bottom, but it shows that everyone is concerned about safety and being efficient and running a good place of employment. So kudos to all of our 400-plus employees out there for having a great, safe year. School has started, so let's all be conscious of kids at the sides of the roads and at the bus stops. As our daylight begins to dwindle, let's all be conscious that there are a lot of young people out there on the roads and waiting around. So let's be safe and keep them safe. Everyone go out there and pick some great Cumberland County apples. We're entering the apple season, so for the next month, it is one of the great things that makes the Northeast a special place. So go out and enjoy, folks. Thank you.
Commissioner Gordon?
Thanks, Jim. I reiterate what our commissioner just spoke about with schools. Schools are open, and especially around the bus stops, and kids are just trying to get back into the discipline of doing what they're asked to do. So be very, very careful. I ask the public to do that. The other is food pantries. Believe it or not, food pantries are really supplying a lot of people with their sustenance. And so if you work around that, or you can find some extra dollars in your hand when you're at the grocery store and get some cans of goods to donate to these people, it certainly gets used. And you might want to check with them and see if there are those articles that they don't normally take in with assistance, but they have to buy, such as soaps and detergents, and et cetera, those kind of things, because they're greatly needed. Thank you.
Mr. Cog?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Cloutier. The big thing on my calendar upcoming is the Maine County Commissioners Association Annual Convention. I don't recall which other commissioners from this board are going to that, but I will be there from Thursday, the 26th of September to, I think we get done on Sunday. And I will be up there enjoying myself in the facility. We have some interesting programs, interesting speakers. I get to make a speech or two, which is fun, and probably by next to the last speech of public speaking engagement for a while. But I'm looking forward to that. We have the County Commissioners Association is in the midst of trying to restructure itself internally so that they can develop a little better revenue base and maybe bring a little more different perspectives into the governance of that organization. We'll be talking about that at the convention. Right. The background, the deep background of that is that for reasons that I don't really understand, we have been operating for a while on the theory that we can spend down our surplus funds without raising our membership rates or finding other sources of revenue, and we've come to the point where we either repair it now or we basically
disappear.
We basically either curtail our activities considerably or go out of business as of January. So Commissioner Gordon was instrumental in the discussions about where we go from here, and from the discussions I've had, there's as usual, there's a certain amount of grumbling, but basically everybody, more or less everyone, all the counties, with a few exceptions, generally agree that our new direction is going to be the way to go. What this means is statistically insignificant increases in the amount that Cumberland County will pay toward the support of the County Commissioners Association, but it also means that we have a better ability to fund our operations and do the things that are of interest to Cumberland County and to other counties across the state. So I'm looking forward to this convention, and I'm, you know, I hope to see at least some of you up there for some of the time. It should be interesting. So that's all I have. Thank you.
And I have virtually nothing, except I wanted to specifically call out Kristen and the CDBG program. Seems like her busy season starts in March and doesn't really slow down much until we start thinking about Thanksgiving.
Until February.
So, yeah, no, it's, and again, a great job again for this last cycle, so it's great to see. And with that, we could wish to adjourn, but if we did, we would not be able to go into executive session, which is what we're going to do next. So
You mean the motion to go into executive session?
we could have such a motion at this time.
Pursuant to, in accordance with 1 MRSA Section 405, to discuss the annual evaluation of the county manager.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going to give ourselves 3 or 4 minutes of respite here before we do that.
I see what you mean.